The rotor blades hadn't moved in 11 days. The AH-64 Apache sat in the hangar like a grounded eagle, proud and silent, its engine gutted by a failure no one could explain. 3 teams of certified engineers had come and gone, each one leaving with scratched heads and folders full of inconclusive diagnostics. The mission was critical. The deadline was 48 hours away, and Commander Daniel Harrow was running out of options. He stood at the hangar entrance, arms crossed, watching his youngest mechanic, Specialist Rios, run the same test sequence for the 4th time that day. The numbers came back wrong again. Rios pulled off his headset and threw it against the workbench in frustration. Daniel understood the feeling. He'd been swallowing his own for over a week. It was his senior logistics officer, Captain Mei Chen, who finally said the name out loud. She did it quietly, almost apologetically, the way you mention something you're not sure you should. "There's someone," she said. "He's retired. Hasn't touched a machine in 7 years. But, sir, if anyone knows this engine, it's Sergeant Major Calvin Price." Daniel had heard of Price. Every Apache crew had. The man was a legend in the way that certain people become legends, not through ceremony, but through stories told in break rooms and around late-night field fires. He had kept 3 Apaches running during a sandstorm in Kandahar, using parts from a decommissioned Humvee and a roll of copper wire. He had once diagnosed an engine fault by sound alone, mid-flight, over radio, saving 2 pilots from a catastrophic failure. But Price had retired after losing his son, a young soldier, in a training accident. He had walked away from everything and everyone, and by all accounts, he had never looked back. Daniel made the call himself. The phone rang 7 times before a gravel-rough voice answered. He didn't beg. He didn't inflate the situation. He simply said, "I have a bird that won't fly, a mission that can't wait, and no one left who knows what I know you know." There was a long silence. Then Price said, "Send a car." He arrived the next morning in worn jeans and a faded jacket, a man in his late 60s who moved like someone who had earned every year on his body. He carried no tools of his own. He walked into the hangar, looked at the Apache for a long moment without saying anything, and then asked Rios to hand him the maintenance log. He read it slowly, cover to cover, standing still while everyone else fidgeted around him. Then he walked to the engine housing, placed his palm flat against the casing, and closed his eyes. It was such a strange, quiet gesture that even the youngest soldiers in the hangar stopped moving to watch. After nearly a minute, he opened his eyes, pointed to a secondary fuel coupling deep in the assembly, and said simply, "There. It's not broken. It's misaligned. Thermal expansion shifted it 2 millimeters during a cold start. Every test you've run has been measuring around it." The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 seconds before Rios dove in with a flashlight. The coupling was exactly where Price said it would be, seated at a near-invisible tilt that had somehow evaded every sensor and every checklist. The fix took 40 minutes. When the engine finally turned over, its sound filling the hangar like a held breath finally released, several of the younger mechanics actually cheered. But Daniel wasn't watching the engine. He was watching Price, who stood a few feet back from the celebration, not smiling exactly, but present in a way that felt different from how he'd arrived. There was something shifting behind the old man's eyes, something quietly unlocking. Daniel walked over and extended his hand. Price shook it firmly. "You still have it," Daniel said. Price looked at the Apache, then at Rios, who was patting the machine like it was alive. "My son wanted to work on these," Price said. His voice didn't crack. It carried the weight of someone who had long since made peace with grief, even if peace and happiness weren't the same thing. He never got the chance. Daniel didn't offer words. There weren't any that fit. Instead, he said, "Come back tomorrow." "Not for the mission. Just come back." Price looked at him sideways. "Why?" Daniel gestured around the hangar, at Rios, at the other young mechanics already crowding around the repaired engine, eager and hungry and green. "Because they need someone who can teach them what no manual can." Price was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded once, the way old soldiers agree to things, without ceremony, without condition. He came back the next day. And the day after that, within a month, the hangar had changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in the way that a place changes when someone who genuinely knows something begins to share it freely. Rios started catching faults that senior engineers missed. The younger crew stopped rushing and started listening, really listening, to the machines they were meant to care for. And sometimes, in the late afternoon, when the work